My name is Olivia Nerone. Once, I was the woman behind the numbers, auditing corporations, finding lies hidden in plain sight. Now, I'm the woman behind a cash register, counting coins for strangers who never look me in the eyes. Life is strange. It takes everything from you, then gives you one moment, one single moment, to take it all back. It was a quiet Thursday. The store smelled like oranges and floor polish. My back ached, my shift was halfway done, and I was thinking about dinner when he walked in. He didn't belong here. Tall, perfectly tailored suit, Italian shoes, the kind of man who carries power in his posture. He placed his items on the counter, imported wine, fine cheese, business magazines, and looked straight at me. "Do you give financial advice too, sweetheart?" The words came with a smirk. His assistant laughed softly behind him. I froze, not because of what he said, but because of his voice. It echoed through years I'd tried to forget. He handed me his corporate card. The name printed on it made my heart stop. Victor Harland, CEO of Harland Group International. The same man whose company I had once investigated. The same man who destroyed my career. I tried to hide my reaction. Scanned the items. Printed the receipt. But inside, something sharp and cold was waking up. He slid a $100 bill across the counter. "Keep the change," he said, like he was tossing a coin to a beggar. I smiled politely. "Have a nice day." He smirked, turned, and walked away, laughing into his phone as if I didn't exist. But I saw it. The folder under his arm. The logo on the cover. The same symbol I'd once circled in red ink on a confidential report. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every word, every look. And finally, I got up. From the back of my closet, I pulled out a dusty box I hadn't opened in 10 years. Inside were files, notes, flash drives, the evidence I was told to destroy. But I never did. One flash drive had a label written in my handwriting, Harland. I plugged it into my old laptop. The screen flickered, then came alive. Folders appeared, full of spreadsheets, offshore accounts, and contracts with names that vanished years ago. And then I saw it. A file titled, Executive Liability Adjustment 2015. My fingers trembled as I opened it. It was all there. The same pattern. The same hidden money trails. He was doing it again. Only this time, on a global scale. I sat back, staring at the glow of the screen. He had humiliated me once. He had taken my reputation, my livelihood, my confidence. But not my memory, not my proof. And if Victor Harland thought the woman behind the cash register was just another nobody, he was about to learn exactly who I used to be. No words. Just silence. But the message was clear. We see you. We know. He didn't even need to speak. He just gave the smallest nod, and the car rolled away, disappearing into the dark. I stayed frozen, gripping the folder like a lifeline, my breath shallow, my pulse loud in my ears. When I finally stepped out from behind the pillar, the garage was empty. Just my reflection staring back from a puddle of oil and water, tired, terrified, but burning with something new. Not fear, focus. That night, I didn't go home. I took the night bus across the city, changing routes twice, until I ended up in a cheap motel on the edge of town. The kind with flickering lights and a lock that rattled when you touched it. I set the folder on the bed. Page after page of numbers, signatures, digital trails. Every line was a confession waiting to be read aloud. I recorded everything, scanned, copied, encrypted. 3 identical drives, hidden in 3 separate places. One for me, one for Martin, one for the truth. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Greater than, "You're in over your head, Olivia." I stared at the screen until the message faded, then powered the phone off. They could find my fear, but not my resolve. The next morning, I went to see Martin. He looked pale, nervous. "Liv," he said quietly, "this is bigger than we thought. He's laundering through international subsidiaries, fake charities, dummy investments. It's a global web. I watched him pace the room. He has politicians, regulators, even journalists on his payroll, Martin added. If we leak this, we can't trust anyone. Not the press, not the law. I took a deep breath. Then we go public ourselves. He blinked. What? Directly. Online. Every file, every document, every name. The truth belongs to everyone, not to a courtroom, not to a news outlet. He stared at me for a long time. Then, finally, he nodded. You're serious. I was serious 10 years ago, I said. I just didn't have proof. Now I do. But before we could act, something happened. Martin didn't show up the next day. No calls, no messages, nothing. His apartment was empty. Laptop gone. Files gone. The only thing left was a coffee mug on the table, still half full. I felt the room spin. For the first time in years, I was truly alone again. I checked the hidden drives. Mine were still safe. But if they had him, they were coming for me next. That night, I sat by the window, city lights flickering in the glass. Outside, cars moved like silent shadows. I thought of Martin, of the woman in the garage, of everyone who tried to fight and vanished. And then I thought of him, Victor Harland, the man who built an empire on other people's silence. I whispered to myself, he thinks he's untouchable. Let's see what happens when the world finally hears his name. I opened my laptop, hands trembling but steady, created a new folder on the desktop, The Truth, and inside it, file by file, I began to upload everything. Documents, memos, wire transfers, names, all of it. As the progress bar climbed past 50%, I exhaled slowly. The weight I'd carried for 10 years began to lift. But just as the upload hit 90, the lights flickered. Then, black, total darkness. The laptop screen went dead. A second later, a low hum filled the air, the sound of a car engine outside my window. Someone was here. I closed the lid, grabbed the flash drive, and ran for the back door. My heart pounded as I sprinted down the narrow stairwell, the sound of footsteps behind me growing louder. When I hit the street, I didn't look back, only forward. The rain had started again, cold, relentless. But I didn't care, because I still had one copy left. And as long as that drive existed, so did the truth. That night, soaked and shaking, I looked up at the city skyline, the towers of glass and steel that people like Harland ruled from above. He thought he could buy silence. He thought fear was permanent. But he was wrong. The woman behind the cash register was gone. And the investigator, the real Olivia Nerone, was back. This wasn't over. Not even close. Olivia Parker had always believed numbers never lie. She had spent years auditing some of the largest corporations, unearthing hidden frauds and exposing executives who thought themselves untouchable. But all that changed one spring morning when her name was dragged through headlines for something she did not do. Overnight, she lost her job, her reputation, and nearly everything she had built. Now, at 62, she stood behind a grocery store counter scanning items, the blue uniform heavy on her shoulders, and the card reader blinking at her like a silent enemy. Life had reduced her to counting cans and frozen pizzas, yet a part of her mind remained sharp, alert, always calculating. It was around 10:15 when a man walked in. Expensive shoes, an overbearing cologne, and that unmistakable arrogance that said he owned the world. He threw a basket of overpriced products onto the conveyor belt without making eye contact. "You take Amex?" he asked, tapping impatiently. "Yes," she replied, steady and controlled. "Card reader just to your right." Her eyes caught the folder under his arm, a leather-bound portfolio with the logo of Hamilton Capital. Her stomach twisted. She recognized it instantly. She had audited them years ago, uncovering sloppy accounting, hidden shell companies, and a pattern of misappropriated funds. The man glanced at her, smirked, and asked, "How old are you?" "Still scanning groceries?" Olivia's fingers hovered over the scanner. "Yes, and I still remember the numbers." He laughed, dismissive. She scanned the last item, printed his receipt, and looked him directly in the eye. Your quarterly projections are falsified. Your marketing team is manipulating expenses. Your IPO will collapse unless you act immediately. The smirk faltered. Confusion crossed his face for the first time. He scoffed, grabbed his receipt, and left without another word. After her shift, she went home, poured herself some soup, and retrieved a flash drive from a hidden drawer. It contained her old audit files for Hamilton Capital. Everything, spreadsheets, emails, reports, still intact. Her heart raced as she opened the main report. The same fraudulent patterns persisted, even more elaborate now. Olivia knew she could not ignore it. She reached out to Martin, a former investigator who had assisted her in the past. Within minutes, he responded, "I've been tracking them quietly. They're escalating. Meet me tomorrow at 10, Parkview Diner. No digital devices." The next morning, she arrived early, ordered tea, and waited. Martin arrived promptly, and together they reviewed the files, cross-referencing vendors, shell companies, and falsified contracts. The scheme had grown global, affecting investors and partners across continents. "Someone is being systematically silenced," Martin said quietly, glancing around. "Employees disappear after raising concerns. Leaks vanish. They are cleaning up everything before it becomes public." Olivia leaned back, feeling a strange mix of fear and determination. "Then we'll build the case ourselves. No one else will touch it until it's airtight." Hours passed. They documented everything by hand. No laptops, no emails, no digital traces. Each page contained evidence, connecting the dots between phantom vendors and financial manipulations. By evening, Olivia's hands were raw from writing, but the picture was complete. The fraud was undeniable. Weeks went by as they gathered information, always cautious, always alert. Every shadow on the street, every unknown vehicle passing her apartment became a possible threat. Yet she persisted. Olivia understood one thing. Once she exposed this, there would be no going back. Finally, they had enough. Olivia and Martin were ready to confront Hamilton Capital's executives, armed not with anger, but with irrefutable proof. The culmination of years of meticulous work, patience, and persistence had led to this moment. Olivia Parker, once broken by corporate betrayal, was now a force to be reckoned with. She knew the road ahead would be dangerous, but she also knew that truth, when wielded wisely, was unstoppable. The next morning, Olivia Parker woke before sunrise. Sleep had eluded her. The thoughts of what she had uncovered in the old files spun endlessly in her mind. Every line, every spreadsheet indicated that Hamilton Capital's fraud was far more extensive than she had imagined. She carefully checked her apartment. Locks secure, windows closed. Every creak and whisper of the city outside felt like a potential threat. Yet, fear mingled with a sense of purpose. She knew she had to act, no matter the danger. Olivia made her way to the Parkview Diner, the location of her meeting with Martin. They settled into a quiet corner, and without preamble, he began reviewing her notes. "It's worse than we thought," he said, leaning over the notebook. "They're manipulating contracts, falsifying expenses, controlling IPO information. Whoever tried to expose them disappears. It's like they've erased every trace of wrongdoing." Olivia nodded, a chill running down her spine. "Then we'll build the case ourselves. No digital devices, no traces. Just paper, just pen." They divided the documentation between them. Contracts cross-checked against old audit reports, duplicate patterns and pseudo-companies meticulously tracked. Every new document revealed another layer of deception spanning the company's finances, marketing department, and external vendors. "Someone is terrified the truth will come out," Martin murmured. "Employees who tried to speak up vanish, and the ones who remain stay silent. It's systematic." Olivia felt both fear and determination at the same time. "Then we'll make sure the evidence is airtight. No one touches it until we're ready to expose them." Days passed. They worked tirelessly, manually documenting every finding. Each page mapped the connections between fake vendors, falsified invoices, and manipulated financial statements. Every line brought them closer to the truth. Olivia began to feel her old strength returning. She remembered how she used to spot schemes like these, exposing them with precision, and now she realized she could do it again, even after years behind a grocery counter. One evening, they noticed a significant detail. One of the vendors, MB Holdings, was using the exact same templates for falsifying invoices that Olivia had flagged 7 years ago. It was a direct link to the fraudulent schemes she had uncovered in the past. "They've scaled the fraud to a global level," Olivia said, eyes scanning the documents. "Investors and partners worldwide are at risk." Martin nodded. "If we don't intervene, people will get hurt. But we must be careful. Every move we make could be a trap." Olivia stared out into the city night through the diner window. She knew she was being watched, that every step was being monitored. But fear no longer controlled her. She had survived the corporate system's cruelty before, and now she was ready to strike back. By the end of the week, they had a detailed plan. Each piece of evidence, meticulously cross-referenced, painted a damning picture of Hamilton Capital. Phantom vendors, fake invoices, manipulated projections. Everything was connected, all pointing to the executive's deliberate fraud. "This is it," Olivia whispered, tapping a page. "We have the full map. The fraud is undeniable. Now, we need to move strategically." Martin looked at her, concern etched on his face. "Are you ready for what comes next? Once we confront them, there's no turning back." Olivia's fingers tightened around the notebook. "I've waited long enough. I've survived their lies once, and I can do it again. This time, I won't let them hide behind power or intimidation." For the next few weeks, they worked in the shadows, careful to avoid any digital trace. Each finding was recorded on paper, cataloged and cross-checked. Every pattern they discovered linked past fraud to present schemes, confirming that the company's executives had expanded their deception to levels no one had suspected. One night, Olivia stared at her hands, raw from hours of writing, and realized that she had regained something she thought lost forever: control. The past had forged her, but now it was time to act. The evidence was clear, the strategy solid, and the timing critical. She looked at Martin across the table, determination mirrored in his eyes. "We expose them together," she said. "We stop the destruction before more people are hurt. But we must be smart. Every move counts." The city outside was quiet, deceptively calm. Olivia felt the weight of the coming confrontation pressing down, but she welcomed it. She knew that the next steps would be dangerous, that the people they were about to confront would not go quietly. But for the first time in years, she felt unstoppable. The game was no longer about survival. It was about justice, and Olivia Parker was ready to reclaim it. Olivia spent the following days meticulously mapping every connection between Hamilton Capital's executives, phantom vendors, and falsified documents. The more she dug, the more the scale of the fraud revealed itself. Each page she wrote in her notebook was a thread connecting past corruption to present-day deception. She had long ceased trusting anyone outside Martin, knowing the company's network ran deep and dangerous. One evening, a new file arrived in her mailbox. No return address, just a simple envelope marked with a handwritten, "Urgent." Olivia carefully opened it and discovered a set of internal emails between senior executives discussing how to obscure upcoming financial reports. The language was coded, almost casual, but she recognized the familiar patterns immediately: front-loaded revenue projections, manipulated marketing expenses, and fake vendor approvals. Martin leaned over her shoulder. "This confirms it," he whispered. "They've been escalating their scheme for years. If this goes public, it will devastate investors, employees, and anyone connected." Olivia nodded, feeling a mix of fear and exhilaration. She remembered the years she had spent as a federal auditor, and how every instinct she honed back then had brought her to this moment. But now, unlike before, she had evidence that could not be ignored. She had paper trails, emails, and spreadsheets, all pointing to the deliberate fraud orchestrated by Hamilton's leadership. The next day, Olivia and Martin met in their usual diner. They spread out all the files, comparing old audit reports to the new evidence. Olivia noticed a pattern in the marketing department. Every quarter, expenses spiked just before board meetings, then normalized right after. The same phantom vendors she had flagged years ago were still active, laundering money and creating false revenue streams. "This isn't just carelessness," she said, voice low and tense. "This is calculated. Someone is running the exact same scheme I caught before, only bigger, and now it's global." Martin frowned. "Do we know who is at the center of this?" Olivia flipped through a spreadsheet, tracing vendor names to the same executives she had investigated in the past. "The CMO is still pulling the strings. But look here. There are additional names now, board members and even external consultants. They're covering their tracks with layers of deception. We can't confront them openly yet, but we can build an airtight case." They spent nights in secrecy, meticulously documenting every invoice, every email, and every transaction that linked back to Hamilton Capital's core fraud. The more they documented, the more dangerous it became. Olivia knew that anyone who noticed their investigation could try to silence them. But she had survived threats and intimidation before. This time, she would not be scared into submission. One afternoon, Olivia received a cryptic text on a burner phone. "We know you're watching. Stop now, or the next warning won't be a message." She showed Martin, who frowned deeply. "They're aware of your actions. Be careful. Every step you take from now on must be precise." Olivia's mind raced. "We don't stop now. If we do, all this, every injustice, every fraudulent transaction, will go unpunished. We have to see this through." They created a detailed timeline linking every fraudulent action, from past audits to current financial manipulations. Olivia's notebooks were filled with meticulous notes, vendor addresses, expense dates, recurring transaction patterns, and executive sign-offs. Every detail told the same story. Hamilton Capital had been running a deliberate, long-term scheme to enrich themselves at the expense of investors and employees. Late one night, as Olivia reviewed the most recent batch of emails, she noticed something alarming. A direct message from one of the current board members hinted that someone in the company was leaking information. It was subtle, but the language indicated a fear of exposure. Olivia realized they were close. Too close. "We're almost there," she whispered to Martin. "The moment we expose this, they'll try to discredit us, silence us, or worse. But if we act smart, we can hit them where it hurts, publicly, legally, and irreversibly." They devised a plan to submit the evidence to the SEC. But first, they needed absolute certainty. Olivia spent days cross-referencing every document, checking calculations, and confirming identities of phantom vendors. Martin acted as her eyes and ears in the outside world, confirming details that only someone inside the corporate network could verify. Finally, they were ready. Olivia compiled the evidence into a comprehensive report. Every fraudulent transaction, every falsified invoice, every manipulated financial statement was documented with precision. The report was thousands of pages long, but airtight. It would leave no room for denial. Before sending it, Olivia took a moment to reflect. She had been a cashier, a shadow of her former self, yet here she was again, wielding the power of truth. She remembered the contemptuous faces of executives who had dismissed her before, and she felt a quiet satisfaction. She was no longer powerless. She uploaded the report securely, ensuring multiple copies reached trusted authorities. Then she leaned back, exhausted, yet resolute. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Hamilton Capital would face the consequences of years of deception, and Olivia Parker would finally reclaim the justice she had fought for, proving that knowledge, persistence, and courage could outlast even the most entrenched lies. The morning after Olivia submitted the report, she awoke to a quiet apartment, but the tension was palpable. Every sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic, seemed amplified. She poured herself coffee and stared at the pile of notebooks and files she had used to track Hamilton Capital's web of fraud. It was a small comfort, knowing she had built a fortress of truth, but she also knew the storm was coming. By mid-morning, Martin arrived with a grim expression. "They know we've submitted something," he said quietly. "Internal chatter suggests they're starting damage control. Expect calls, threats, and attempts to discredit you." Olivia nodded, already steeling herself. "Then we stay calm. We let the authorities do their work, but we remain vigilant. They'll try everything to intimidate us, but we can't falter now." Later that day, a mysterious envelope arrived at Olivia's door. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A printed screenshot of one of her emails, the one detailing Hamilton's phantom vendors. No signature, no note. Just a silent threat. Her pulse quickened, but she forced herself to breathe steadily. She knew fear was what they wanted. Olivia refused to give it to them. She and Martin met at their usual diner to review the latest developments. Martin had tracked internal memos from Hamilton Capital hinting at emergency meetings and contingency plans. "They're trying to figure out who leaked what," he said, sliding a stack of documents toward Olivia. "And they're considering scapegoats." Olivia scanned the papers. The same pattern emerged: misdirection, blame shifting, and desperate attempts to maintain appearances. "They're panicking," she said. "Every move they make now is reactive, not strategic. That means we're gaining the upper hand." For the next several days, Olivia worked tirelessly. She cross-checked new filings with old audit reports, confirmed vendor addresses, and documented patterns of shell transfers. Her notebooks became a map of deceit, showing exactly how deep the corruption ran. Each revelation reinforced what she already knew. Hamilton Capital's leadership had orchestrated this fraud for years, and now their empire was crumbling from the inside. One evening, while reviewing a particularly complex set of transactions, Olivia noticed something unusual. Certain vendor invoices had been rerouted through offshore accounts not previously identified. The pattern matched tactics used in an old case she had investigated years ago, the one that initially led to her downfall. It was as if history was repeating itself. "This is bigger than I thought," Olivia murmured to Martin. "They're expanding the same scheme, but now it's international. If we don't stop them, the fallout will be catastrophic." Martin leaned over, his brow furrowed. "We need to anticipate their moves. They'll try to discredit us publicly, maybe even attempt legal action to stall the investigation. We have to stay one step ahead." The following morning, Olivia received a call from an anonymous source within Hamilton Capital. The voice was careful, cautious, and wary. "You don't understand how close we are to exposing everything," the caller said. "If you push this too fast, people will get hurt." Olivia's heart raced. "We know the truth," she replied evenly. "We're taking it to the authorities. Anyone who's innocent will be protected, but those responsible will be held accountable." The line went silent for a moment, then disconnected. Olivia turned to Martin. "They know we're close. They're scared, and that's good. Fear makes people sloppy. It's the first crack in their armor." Days turned into nights as Olivia and Martin compiled additional evidence. They uncovered hidden vendor contracts, manipulated projections, and falsified marketing campaigns. The documentation was extensive, leaving no room for denial. Olivia meticulously numbered each page, annotated spreadsheets, and created diagrams connecting every executive to their fraudulent activities. By dawn, Olivia was exhausted but resolute. The city outside her window glowed softly in the early morning light. She took a moment to breathe, to center herself. The storm was approaching, but she was ready. For years, she had been underestimated, dismissed, and undermined. Now, armed with irrefutable evidence, she was no longer the passive observer of her own life. She was the force that would bring the truth to light, hold the corrupt accountable, and reclaim the power that had once been taken from her. As the first rays of sunlight hit her apartment, Olivia felt a surge of clarity and determination. Hamilton Capital had built their empire on lies, deceit, and manipulation. But the fortress of falsehoods they had erected was cracking, and she was the hammer poised to shatter it completely. The path ahead would be perilous, fraught with risks and challenges, but she was ready. Every step, every decision, every strategy was calculated. She would not be stopped, and she would not be silenced. Outside, the city moved unaware of the quiet storm gathering. But Olivia knew. She had the evidence, the strategy, and the resolve to see it through. Hamilton Capital had underestimated her for the last time. And now, their reckoning was inevitable. By mid-morning, Olivia was already at the downtown cafe where she and Martin had agreed to meet their confidential source. The cafe was quiet. A few early risers typing on laptops or sipping coffee, oblivious to the high-stakes investigation unfolding mere tables away. Olivia's nerves were steady, but her senses were alert. Every person, every movement, could be a potential threat. She had learned the hard way that power and greed bred paranoia, and Hamilton Capital's leaders were likely both. Martin arrived moments later, carrying a small, discreet folder. "Everything we've gathered from internal sources," he said, lowering his voice. "They've confirmed several anomalies we suspected: vendor contracts, shell companies, and unauthorized transfers. It's worse than we thought." Olivia scanned the contents quickly, her eyes narrowing. The details were intricate, labyrinthine, but undeniable. Each transaction, each pattern, each piece of forged documentation led back to the same perpetrators she had uncovered years ago. Hamilton Capital's deceit was systemic, deeply ingrained, and designed to avoid scrutiny. Yet, with her expertise and Martin's intelligence network, they were finally able to expose it. "Do you realize what this means?" Olivia asked, her voice low but steady. "If we present this to the authorities, the board, and the media strategically, Hamilton Capital will collapse. And their top executives? They'll have nowhere to hide." Martin nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Yes, but timing is critical. One wrong move, and they'll cover their tracks, destroy evidence, or intimidate our sources. We need to be precise, calculated. No haste, no mistakes." Olivia leaned back, sipping her coffee slowly. Her mind raced, recalling every detail, every calculation, every piece of evidence she had meticulously gathered. "We need a plan that guarantees their exposure without giving them a chance to manipulate the narrative. Every step must be controlled. Every leak contained, every move anticipated." Over the next few hours, they developed a strategy that involved multiple layers of verification, secure evidence transfers, and coordinated legal maneuvers. Olivia would act as the primary forensic auditor, ensuring every number, every ledger entry, and every vendor contract was cross-verified. Martin would coordinate with trusted insiders within Hamilton Capital, gathering corroborative evidence and monitoring for signs of tampering or interference. As the day turned into evening, Olivia returned to her apartment, her mind still consumed by calculations and strategies. She spread the documents across her small table, highlighting discrepancies, connecting dots, and making notes on every significant transaction. The magnitude of Hamilton Capital's deception became even clearer as she worked. It wasn't just a matter of financial mismanagement, it was an intricate web of manipulation, forgery, and systemic corruption. Her phone buzzed. A secure message from an anonymous source within the company. It was brief but alarming. Asterisk. "They know you're gathering evidence. Be careful. Expect interference." Olivia's pulse quickened, but she didn't panic. She had faced threats before and had survived. What mattered now was strategy, composure, and foresight. She locked her laptop, secured the evidence in multiple physical locations, and reviewed contingency plans. If Hamilton Capital tried to sabotage her, she needed to be ready, and she was. That night, sleep came fitfully. Her mind churned with scenarios. Every possible reaction from Hamilton Capital's executives, every potential risk to herself or her sources. But within that whirlwind of calculation, a sense of calm purpose prevailed. Olivia knew that her meticulous work, combined with Martin's insider coordination, would leave the company with no room to maneuver.